And now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our final session for today's HEDNA at Home conference. Pascal Berg will moderate our payment session. Pascal has been a long contributing member of the HEDNA community. He's a principal at Edgar, Dunn, which is a global payments consultancy. He's worked with our payments working group for many years now, and he even co-chaired our 2-year effort to design the future best practices in hospitality payments. He joins us now live from Paris to moderate our final session today. Thank you. Welcome, Pascal.
Thank you, Audrey. Can you hear me okay?
Certainly can.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thanks for the introduction, and very glad to be here. At first, I wanted to thank Mike Carlo for suggesting this very European panel. I think we have 4 different countries, 4 different accents, so hopefully you can understand us all. Mike also asked me to make sure we all respect the code of conduct. So of course, we're going to be compliant with antitrust and competition laws. And the panel here is to discuss how we can really reinvent the guest payment experience during this time. So what I'm going to ask is at first each panel member to introduce themselves, and then we'll go straight into the conversation. So we'll do it in the maybe alphabetical order. So Christian, do you want to go first and quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pascal. And thanks to HEDNA. My name is Christian Meissner. I'm working with Deutsche Hospitality. It's a more regional European hotel chain. And here I'm responsible for the digital distribution and consumer payments part of the company.
Great, thank you. And I think we've got Marija from the Netherlands.
Hi, Marija from Adyen, based in Amsterdam. I'm a global head of hospitality within Adyen. And for the ones that don't know, Adyen is the payments processing company that is processing for all the famous tech companies, but as well retailers and hoteliers.
Great, thank you. Thanks for making it today. And finally, we're going over to Spain to Xavi. Xavi, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. This is Xavi Ginesta. I'm with Voxel Group. We do electronic invoicing, and we are very involved since the last 4 years with HEDNA. We've been participating in the development of the Open Payment Alliance standard, and we're currently implementing the first version of the payment manager that runs this new infrastructure and running the initial early pilots.
Great. Well, thanks. So now you know who's on the panel. And as Audrey mentioned, I'm a director at Edgar, a consulting firm in payments. I run a trial practice, and I'll be your moderator today. So what we thought we'll do is we have 3 topics we wanted to cover with you today. We'll see if you have time, maybe 10 minutes on each topic, and then make sure to have time to look at your questions. So please fill in your questions in the Q&A tool. So the first topic we wanted to discuss is, for those of you that read the report that we written a few years ago, a big topic in the hotel industry is the emergence or not of advanced prepaid rates that are being potentially collected centrally. So really the way, how do we collect payment from the guests? Do we do that ahead of time? Is it done centrally? And the first question maybe to the panel on this key topic, no one has a crystal ball, but with COVID, do we have a sense that there'll be more adoption of this kind of advanced prepaid bookings? There'll be less adoption, too early to tell. What can we share on this key topic? So maybe if we start with the hotel side, I don't know, Christian, if you want to maybe share your view on this key topic.
Yeah, happy to do so. Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said. Okay, that we have seen, or what we have seen from a hotel perspective over the last years is that the fact of paying in advance, paying upfront, also from 60, 90 days or whatever, so a long-term advance payment, getting, especially in the European countries where we mostly like to deal with cash, is getting more and more accepted. But what we're now seeing since COVID-19, so especially the last month, is that we that after the first peak of the lockdown and so on and so forth, so that the business is actually recovering. What we're now identifying is that there's a slight change in the behavior of guests and how they are booking rate plans and requesting a bit of flexibility in the payment terms. So they are, we've seen, they are willing and able to pay in advance in case they're able to refund without any additional costs. I think it's more or less the uncertainty and the need for security. Okay, can I travel or not? And in case I'm not able to travel, am I able to get my money back? And this is what we're actually seeing when we're looking at our booking windows and the rate plans. We have several rate plans set up, some rate plans with payments, some without. And here we can clearly see, okay, that the most of the time more expensive rate plans without prepayments are more often booked than the cheaper ones with payment. And we are requested by our guests and travelers to change the terms of payments.
Okay, so really a key trend around the flexibility and potentially being able to to get refunds. I mean, Marija, you work with many hotels, and of course each hotel has its own policy, and we heard earlier that of course each guest segment is different. But do you have a view on that? Are you seeing trends about the way the market is going in terms of prepaid advance bookings?
Yeah, so hotels want to offer different ways, of course, for their guests to pay. So they want to offer different payment methods, so they can choose either before coming on or where they're in a hotel. But like what we can see on the platform is that after the lockdown started, we could see that the number of the volume of authorizations swapped with volume of refunds. We didn't see that many chargebacks from hotel side, but like on the other side, they really had to refund as much more than they can get authorizations. So yeah, that's.
Marija, I think you shared a slide with me. Do you want me to share my screen so we can maybe
you can
show this? Okay, so let me try to see if I'm not too technology challenged, and whether can you see the slide?
Yeah, so this is what I was referring to. So if you look at the dates from March, where with the green color is the authorization count of number of transactions, then you can see how that swaps with like, okay, now you don't have that many authorization, but you have like much bigger number of refunds than is usually expected. So here the drops are only weekends, but the rest of the days you can see that all the hotels had to refund quite a lot during lockdown.
And what you're saying is so the chargeback line is that green line, right? So you didn't have too many issues there, because we had another webinar in the airline sector where there were issues of consumers trying to get a refund and maybe trying to get a chargeback, kind of double dipping, right? So we didn't see too much of that in the hotel sector, or it's hard to tell if there's double dipping?
They didn't do it directly with the hotels when they book with the hotels, but I think it was done much more when they were doing with a reservation with OTAs. So in that case, it was more visible to have chargebacks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, maybe Christian can add from his perspective. This is just data from our platform.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that, and you've hidden the actual numbers, so plus it's in aggregate, right? So we.
This is aggregate of all hotels. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully,
I think it reflects what happened, and especially the higher amount of refunds versus the authorization. So money we have to pay out and versus money we are able to collect. Was in the past quite challenging, also especially to ensure to the partners dealing with our payments here, to ensure the liquidity, so that there's enough money to pay out on the accounts. And this is something speaking for my company, but I think for most of the companies taking part in the session, we were prepared for that, for payout in such amount. So this was a lot of manual work to keep the balances on the accounts that high, that we were able to pay out.
On that topic, Xavi, you spend a lot of time in the hotel ecosystem. So among, I mean, without naming names, within the companies you've met, was it similar? A lot of manual processes to handle things like refunds, and did that really impact negatively the guest experience? And are we out of it now, or we still in that mess? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm more on the B2B side of payments, but yeah, we do work with thousands of hotels worldwide. And what we are hearing is exactly this, that they've gone through hell processing refunds. And especially here in Spain, it's been especially bad in the summer because it looked like everything was going to be more or less back to normal during the summer. And there were a lot of last minute bookings like a week or two before the actual vacation date in the months of June, July, and even August. And what happened is that as soon as the government started to declare that people had to wear a mask in the street and everything, everybody panicked. And in the UK, they started canceling reservations, and it was almost overnight. I remember I was in Mallorca then. It was in June, and it was full. The whole island, the hotels were full. That week I was there. Everybody was happy. Everybody was saying next week we're booked. We're completely booked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on Thursday or so, this news came up. And on Friday, everybody was in panic. Most of the hotels were totally canceled. Most of the reservations were canceled overnight. So in a matter of 2 days, the entire island was empty. So
it goes back to Christian's point about consumers really expect that flexibility, and us in the payments industry, we really need to make sure that we can deliver then on these refunds and really limit the the negative impact on the consumer. Just maybe another topic. I mean, we talked very quickly about the advanced and the prepaid bookings. If you look at other parts of travel, some of the airlines, for instance, are piloting a subscription. I don't know if you saw, like Air Canada, they're offering a monthly subscription and fly as much as you want domestically. Others like Emirates are doing you hold my rate, so you see a fare you like and they hold it for a few days before you get charged. Do you think the hoteliers will also try to experiment with different payment models as a way to either kickstart demand or really meet this need for flexibility, or not? What's your sense about what kind of experiments or initiative might take place? I don't know, Christian or Marija, if you have any views on that.
Yeah, Christian, you can go from hotel perspective.
Yeah, I think we have to be at some kind, or we have to put some creativity in place. So thinking about, okay, what is the expectation of the travelers, giving them the flexibility, but also the security. So I think the hotels are actually in some kind of very in a very bad situation. So we have to take a look into a lot of security and hygiene concept things, and then on the other hand try to get and earn money with quite low demand we've seen. So I think the hotel industry needs now to start thinking about, okay, am I offering all the right payment methods and supporting the needs, not just in e-commerce, but also on the point of sale when it comes to security, so touchless or contactless payments and so on and so forth. So offering all the different possibilities to ensure or give the traveler during the booking process or ahead of the booking process, but also on spot. That sense of security, I think the travelers are actually expecting, adding the flexibility to cancel on short term. Yeah. Maybe not cancel, but rebook would be also maybe an option. So trying to keep the money, since we all need the money. So one of the biggest decisions or heaviest decisions we are actually taking is, okay, shall we keep the prepayment and taking the risk of, again, an increase in the refunds and the same horrible situation we had earlier this year? Or are we stop collecting prepayments? And then don't have money for securing the cash flow. So it's the cash flow versus the security.
Yeah, so that's a big question that I'm sure every hotel should think about if they haven't. So Marija, is that the kind of request you're getting from your hotel customers to really make sure that they're offering the right forms of payment to to the end customer, to the guest? And we'll talk about contactless in a minute, but just if we talk about maybe.
Yeah, hotels are working on those strategies further to still offer different options. So to offer seamless payments either on the time of booking, to do prepaid rates, and of course to have the option to refund to the same card and the same payment method. So I think that will stay, but of course what Christian was saying is there will be some operational challenge there if this happens again with lockdowns, that you need to maintain refunds and so on. So to accommodate everything that is needed. Okay,
very good. So that was the first topic we wanted to discuss, and just to make sure that maybe we progress to the second topic, and also don't forget to ask us questions if you have some. I think Christian, you mentioned it very quickly, the whole topic of migration to touchless and to contactless, and here again I think payment can really play an important role in the overall guest experience. So I think it'd be interesting to hear maybe with Christian first, your own experience, especially in Germany, which is historically a very cash, it's a cash society, right? The Germans love paying cash. So it'd be great to hear from you. And then after that, I think Marija, you have a couple of slides to to share with us. So Christian, what's your view on contactless and how are German consumers changing or not their attitude to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's totally right that we German people, we love to pay cash. So more than a half of all the private transactions are done cash or paid with cash. But this has changed over the past month in hotel, but also in retail, so grocery stores and so on and so forth. I think it's a long time ago that I personally, so going around in the city, have seen cash payments somewhere. So all the people are now changing their behavior using the contactless payment functionality of their cards, or directly moving into the mobile payment part. Mm-hmm. So we're skipping a little bit the part of the contactless card payment and going directly into mobile. That's quite interesting. And we were already prepared. All our properties are stuck with contactless payments. Mm-hmm. But we see that the usage, the rates of contactless payments in 2019 and 2020, so the comparable season, increased by more than 1,000%. So it was quite low, but now we have nearly half of the transactions of cards is done with contactless. So I think it is a huge change in the behavior of especially people living in a country living cash.
So even in Germany, cash country, people are moving to cash. So that must mean that they must move even more maybe elsewhere. So Marija, on that topic, do you want now maybe me to share the couple of slides you shared on that topic?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so
go there.
Yeah, sure. In the last months, we have been quite busy with building more on this contactless journey. Payment takes part in every step, of course, of the journeys when a guest is arriving in the hotel and before. So the question here is how hotels can use their time nowadays, while it's not that busy, to improve some of their processes and products. And here you can look at every step of the journey. You can look what you can digitalize. Is it the messaging? So many hotels, what we're building with them now is they're trying to remove the lobby, because all of us as travelers and also in hospitality industry, that's one of the places where people might stand in a row and they will not like it anyhow, especially not today. So then the question comes what we can do to remove that step. And what they are doing is they kind of send emails before arrival, mm-hmm. Asking for check-in information, asking for payment, and and just give the key when they enter the door. with that, of course, you're solving an issue which was there already before, how we can optimize the journey on the, on the check-in point. But now with COVID, hotels will be forced to even think much more about this and implement, different strategies. So the same can happen also if you look at the restaurants. Is it a terminal and then you use contactless card? Is it again, some hotels, some casual dining, especially restaurants, are implementing QR codes on their tables. So you would have to, the guests will have to use their mobile phones. And then here payments are a bit shifting more towards the e-commerce side. And hotels and food and beverage parties have to also look into implementing 3DS. They have to look in payments in a different way.
Do you want me to go to next slide?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe also Kristen can add on this. Yeah, this is just the simple, if we talk about contactless. Yeah, this is just, you use your contactless card or using your phone or use any type of payment method as Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, and you name it. All of this is available on the payment terminals, but also consumers are using them much more nowadays. So if you go on the next slide.
Just maybe on that one, just a question for Christian. I mean, I don't know if you can share or if you have a view. You mentioned that some consumers, use a contactless card versus others have just leapfrogged and use their mobile, maybe because they have Apple Pay. Do you have a sense in Germany of the split? Is it still mostly contactless cards, more traditional, or are people really full mobile now? Or is it hard to tell? Does it really depend on the hotel or the generation?
I think for our own properties, I'm not really able to answer, but I just read some statistics about Germany. And here's the contactless card payment is higher than the mobile payment, but the growth rate for mobile is faster. So I think maybe a second lockdown and mobile payment will be overrule the contactless card.
Okay, thank you for that. And Marija, sorry, I think you mentioned you have some statistics to share here.
Yeah, so this is simple for MasterCard. They saw only in the first quarter 40% more contactless, and then Visa also published this number of 150% from 2019 on. So everyone will adopt contactless. I mean, it was a good technology before. Now it's very necessary. And here we have done one research with consumers as well, where they say like 1 in 6 actually are using contactless first time this year. And then most of them will continue using even after all this is finished.
Yeah, just to add to that one, I was looking at some stats in the French market, and the maximum threshold used to be 30 euros for contactless card, and it was increased to 50. And within 3 days, there was something like 3 million consumers that use contactless, between 30 and 50 euros. So it's actually amazing how quickly people can move when they really see the value of in that case, not touching physically the pin pad anymore. And I think you have a last slide, Marija, here.
Yeah. So. Yeah, this is a note about again, back to all the hoteliers, to look at all the different, guest experience that they're providing. If it's a resort, maybe implement, payment with variables and contactless. If it's like a more casual restaurant, hotel, then you might think about opening the door with a, mobile key lock and, pay with mobile phone. If it's more luxury, then pay by link is a function where to third-party reservations, you send the link. So, looking at all these journeys, definitely there is a space for improvement. And by looking at this crisis, they also might optimize their business operations. Because if you do more of digital, implement more of digital ways of handling the guest journey, then you might also save on a workforce, because nowadays, if you, for example, implement a QR code on the table to order, then you might not need that many waiters in your restaurant. So yeah, if we look for silver linings here, that the optimization might be one.
Okay.
And another one, if you look at all about reopening travel and so on, the young people will be the first that will travel, because they're not that risky group of travelers, and they will be the one demanding more of these experiences.
Definitely. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing, Christian and Marija, some stats and thoughts on contactless, which we thought would be relevant to discuss today. Since many of the hotels are thinking about going to a full touchless experience. So that was maybe more the the good news or the positive side. Maybe to finish on the third topic, not meaning to say it's bad news, but we have to talk about risk, right? So in this environment, there is a risk that potentially consumer, I guess, makes a booking, and then the OTA could go bankrupt, the bed bank could go bankrupt, the hotel could go bankrupt, and how do we really minimize any negative impact on the guest, right? Because that's really the last thing we want to do. So on that topic, we thought maybe we could start with Ravi, and I don't know if you want to maybe share a couple of slides now, just to give a framework to the attendees about how to think about that risk.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're now getting into the area of B2B payments. What happens when a customer goes to an OTA like Expedia, books? Expedia is acting in this case as a merchant. So the customer pays at the time of booking, and then the OTA is paying later on to the hotel. So what we have here is a situation where we have three players: the customer, the OTA, and the hotel. This is the most simple B2B payment scenario that we can encounter. And obviously, there are different risks involved. As you said, what happens if the hotel goes out of business? What happens if the OTA goes out of business? So in the hospitality industry, as you all very well know, unlike airlines, hotels don't get paid at the time of booking when there is an agent in between. They get paid after the booking. And in fact, they can get paid pretty late, much later than the time of booking. In fact, they can get paid several weeks or even months after the time of checkout, depending on the actual arrangement that they have with the OTA. So this is exactly the opposite scenario of what happens in the airline industry. In the airline industry, you have a bunch of airlines, many more travel agents. So the ones that have the power are the airlines, so they impose the rules. Here we have the opposite. The suppliers, the hotels, are in the range of 1 million, and you have a bunch of very powerful OTAs that impose the rules. So they get the money up front, and they get to keep it until until either the time of check-in or sometimes a few weeks after checkout. So in this case, obviously, until now, this worked quite well, because hotels could afford getting paid a few weeks after checkout. This actually, today, I think it's an anomaly, because this is a practice that comes from the times of the tour operating era, or before the internet, when tour operators used to require an invoice in order to pay hotels, and processing a paper invoice took time. Today, this is no longer necessary, because with electronic invoicing and electronic payment technology, this act of sending an electronic invoice and getting paid after reconciliation can essentially happen in real time at the time of check-in or at the time of checkout. But still, it's remained there. And it's a weird situation that happens only because there's a third player that's not in this slide, which keeps everything together and keeps everything working together. And that third player is called the credit insurance company. So hotels were able to accumulate significant debt from OTAs for weeks after checkout. because there were these credit insurance companies that basically insured all their sales. So what meant is that in case that the OTA went out of business, the hotel would get paid by these credit insurance companies. Now, this worked very well before COVID-19 because that was a very stable situation where nobody pretty much went out of business. It was very rare that that happened. We of course had the issue with Thomas Cook, but that was not the typical thing. Now the problem, that safety is no longer there. The risk is much higher. The possibility that an OTA, no matter how large, can actually go out of business is there. And that's caused credit insurance companies to lower their credit lines. In fact, in some cases, they just don't give any credit to many customers. And because of that, hotels now have a significant problem to operate in the terms they were working before. And that's in fact probably good news, because back to the previous question, if it makes more and more sense to go to the airline model, to the prepaid model, I think it's not that it makes sense today, it's basically a necessity. Hotels are moving more and more towards prepayments, and this situation where we had this time of payment that was was much later than checkout, this is disappearing because there's no credit insurance that's supporting this. So everybody is moving towards payments at check-in. And that's causing a rise of payments based on virtual credit cards. But not only, there are other alternatives to credit cards that are also emerging in this context. Probably this is the other opportunity that we have to see alternative forms of payment coming in. And the third opportunity that we have here, besides these two that I just mentioned, going to prepaid refundable rates and injecting alternative forms of payment into this space, is the possibility of streamlining everything. Until now, the way B2B payments were processed in the hospitality industry was very manual, very cumbersome, very error prone, and there were a lot of pain points, breakage being one of the main ones that hoteliers were suffering. So I think that now we have an opportunity to automate everything so that B2B payments can happen in a fully streamlined manner, which is essential. That's actually a key to any industry, that payments happen timely and in a frictionless manner is something that should be taken for granted. That's not the case in the hospitality industry. And this is why in HEDNA we promoted the development of the Open Payment Alliance. Essentially, the Open Payment Alliance is a framework for streamlining B2B payments in the travel space. And it just turns out that COVID has become an additional justification. We never thought that COVID would be an ally to foster the deployment of the Open Payment Alliance, but the fact that COVID is now pushing forward this need to pay faster, to pay at the time of check-in or even a few days before check-in in some cases, calls for the need to streamline everything. Because what you have on the screen is the simplest scenario. That's very simple, but you can get into much more complex scenarios, something like this, where you have an OTA, a bed bank, or several bed banks between the OTA and the hotel, and everybody may have different payment arrangements. It could be, for instance, that the bed bank agrees to pay with a VCC at the time of check-in to the hotel, but then that same bed bank is getting paid on net 30 terms from an OTA. So that means that the bed bank has to pay the hotel before it gets paid from the OTA. So there's another source of risk there. It may be, it might be reasonable for that bed bank to accept that risk, especially if it has a credit insurance company. If it doesn't, maybe it's not so acceptable anymore. In any case,
and Ravi, so if I may interrupt, because we only have a couple of minutes left. One key takeaway, I think, from what you're saying is we really need to sort out or B2B payments, because it's really impacting the guest experience, especially if things go wrong, right? If any one of these players goes down, well, we better have something that is either prevents that risk from happening, or that is streamlined to be able to handle it quickly, because otherwise the guest is really going to suffer, right, from any bankruptcy or any issues happening in that chain.
Yeah, right. If something goes wrong here, if there is no, it depends on exactly who goes out of business, right? So if we are saying the guest, once the guest has paid the OTA, the guest has paid, he's
right.
thinks that he's going to be able to go to the hotel. But what happens if the bed bank goes out of business? The hotel is not getting paid. The guest goes to the hotel, but the guest has paid the OTA. The hotel got the booking from a bed bank, not from the OTA. The hotel might not even know that this booking originated in an OTA. That could be actually the case. The bed bank goes out of business. The hotel is not accepting that guest on board. Check-in. So that's the thing. If the customer has paid upfront, there is no reason nowadays why the money should not reach the hotel throughout this entire value chain before check-in at the latest at the time of check-in, because everybody's covered. If the customer paid with a credit card, the OTA pays with a virtual credit card, and the bed bank or the hotel go out of business, both the guest and the OTA are covered by the card schemes, right? So there's nothing to fear. There's no reason why they should not pay before for a check-in at least, right?
Yeah.
So we definitely need to see how we're going to see how everything is gonna move faster than it would have anyway, because I think that was a movement that was going to happen sooner or later. But COVID is definitely accelerating this movement.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that on this panel. Just maybe the last couple of minutes we have, if I can summarize some of the key messages. So we talked about prepaid bookings. I think the key takeaway is for all hotels to really work out, even more importantly now, what should be their own plan, making sure they accept the right forms of payment. Contactless, we said, is more or less a no-brainer, but you need to look at how to enable it. And really, Xavi, thanks for highlighting the importance of really streamlining the whole B2B piece to make sure we don't have any negative impact on the guest experience in case anything goes wrong. So maybe in the last minute or two we have just to answer any questions from attendees. I see we have one question. No, Marija, I don't know if you want to answer it or someone else. We have a question about contactless payment. Does it help meeting the requirements of SCA? I was waiting to see how long it would take before we would mention strong customer authentication, which is a hot topic in the hotel sectors. And I see Christian is laughing as well. So do you want to answer specifically that question, or more broadly in 1 minute, whether and how hotels need to think about SCA?
Yeah, so if we talk about contactless on payment terminals, then definitely it's a strong customer authentication because you have the card present. But if we're talking about getting more of e-commerce payments, what I mentioned about getting the person to check in on through email, message, and online, then all the hotels have to start looking into 3DS and implementing strong customer authentication.
And if anybody on the line is somehow involved in payment or distribution and you don't know what we're talking about, you need to get in touch with one of us because you don't have much time to get ready. Christian, any views on SCA? I'm sure you're ready, but I hope.
Some kind of ready, yeah. So we have some months, or two months left until we have to be ready. But yeah, as you said, I think for the companies operating, especially within the European Union, need to be aware of this topic, some customer authentication. Yeah, it's okay. Well, it's on top of all the whole COVID-19 thing, is to implement a regulation which will affect the whole e-commerce environment.
And that affects the guest experience, right? So that's why I think it's a good question, as you said, especially in Europe. So thanks, Anne, for asking that question. So I think we've gone over or more or less over our allotted time. So Audrey, do you want us to finish now and we hand over to you?
That would be great. We could continue and have more of this discussion because this is so helpful. And of course, as soon as we start talking about SCA, I want to keep you guys all online as a distribution person for a couple more hours. But unfortunately, we can't. So I'm sure a lot of the people that have joined today will be reaching out. So thank you for offering your expertise as you were volunteered. So.